Somewhere right now, a man exactly like you is getting a phone call that's about to end his life as he knew it. Not his actual life, his idea of how much time he had left to fix things. And here's the part that should scare you more than his phone call ever could. You already know that call's coming for you too. You just don't know when, so you live like it isn't. Most people think they have time. They don't. They have a countdown they can't see. And every single day you spend performing productivity instead of living with intention, you're betting against a number nobody will ever show you. Stay until the end. Because I'm going to show you exactly what changes in a man's mind the moment he stops gambling with a number he can't see, and how you can make that shift without waiting for the phone to ring. Here is the law, and it is not comfortable. You are not busy. You are avoiding every meeting you didn't need to take, every scroll session that ate an hour you'll never see again, every "I'll deal with that relationship later." That's not time management. That's a man refusing to look directly at the one fact that would reorganize his entire life if he let it in. That his time is not a renewable resource. It is the only truly non-renewable resource he owns. Seneca wrote it 2,000 years ago, and it still lands like a blade. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Most people think they're protecting themselves by not thinking about death. They're wrong. They're not protecting themselves. They're just postponing the moment they'll have to feel the full weight of how much they let slip through their hands. And that moment always arrives. The only question is whether it arrives while you still have time left to do something about it, or after. And there's a specific moment where this becomes undeniable. I'll show you exactly what it looked like for one man. Let's be precise about what avoidance actually costs you, because "you'll die one day" is too abstract to change behavior. Vague truths don't move people. Specific losses do. Every year you postpone the hard conversation with your father is a year he ages without you having said the thing that actually mattered. Every year you tell yourself, "Next year I'll finally build the thing," is a year a version of you that could have started 5 years earlier watches you stall from somewhere just out of reach. Not because you're lazy, because your brain is built with a bias that actively works against you here. And once you understand the mechanism, you'll never look at your calendar the same way again. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Thinking about your death is not morbid. Refusing to think about it is. Most people treat mortality like a topic you avoid to protect your peace. It's the opposite. Avoiding it is what destroys your peace slowly, quietly, one procrastinated decision at a time. Confronting it deliberately on your own terms, before life forces the confrontation on you, is what the Stoics called Premeditatio Malorum, the practice of rehearsing the worst before it arrives, not to suffer twice, but to strip the worst of its power over you. Marcus Aurelius did this every single morning, not as therapy, as training. He rehearsed loss, rehearsed failure, rehearsed the end, so that when it came in whatever form, it found a man who was already prepared, not a man meeting it for the first time in the worst possible moment. Before I show you what this actually looks like in a real timeline, answer this honestly in the comments. What's the one thing you keep telling yourself you'll get to someday? The conversation, the business, the apology, the trip. Type it. Not the vague version, the specific one. Because in a minute, you're going to see exactly what happens to a man who never said his. His name was David, 44, regional sales director. The kind of man who told himself the story that later was a place that would always be there waiting for him. Day 1. David is driving home from a client dinner he didn't want to attend. At 11 p.m., on a road he's driven 400 times. A truck runs a red light. His car spins. He walks away with a fractured wrist and a windshield in pieces across the passenger seat. the seat his 15-year-old daughter sits in every single school morning. He sits on the curb, wrist throbbing, and for the first time in maybe a decade, a single sentence forms in his mind with total clarity. I almost ran out of time to say the things I keep postponing. Week 2. The wrist is healing. The fear is not. David tries to go back to normal, back to the emails, back to the late dinners, back to telling his daughter, "We'll talk this weekend," for the 3rd weekend running. But something has shifted underneath. He notices, for the first time, how many hours of his week are spent managing other people's urgency instead of his own priorities. He starts writing down, just for himself. Nobody else sees it. The 5 conversations he's been avoiding for years. His father, his daughter, his business partner, his own health, his marriage. He doesn't act yet. He's just looking at the list, which is itself the first act of Premeditatio Malorum, looking directly at what you've been avoiding instead of managing your attention around it. Month 2. David calls his father, not for a reason, not because of an emergency, just to say the thing he'd been rehearsing in his head for 6 years. That he was proud to be his son, that he forgave the parts that were hard, that he didn't want either of them to find out too late that this conversation had mattered. His father is quiet on the phone for a long moment, then says, "I've been waiting 15 years for you to say that." 15 years. Sitting there, available the entire time, waiting for a version of David that could have shown up any day David chose, and instead showed up only after a truck ran a red light and nearly took the choice away entirely. Month 5. David restructures his work week. Not dramatically, not by quitting his job in a blaze of main character energy, but by cutting the 3 recurring meetings that existed purely out of habit and replacing them with 2 protected hours a week where he does the one thing he'd been telling himself he'd get to eventually. Building the consulting practice he'd wanted to start for a decade. It isn't a movie ending. He didn't become a different man overnight. What changed was smaller and more permanent than that. He stopped treating his remaining time as infinite and started treating it as a fixed, shrinking, non-negotiable resource, which is what it actually is, and always was. And here's what almost nobody tells you about why this shift is so hard to make without a truck running a red light first. Here's what most people don't understand about why they postpone the things that matter most. Your brain is not built to weigh a vague future cost against a concrete present comfort fairly. Psychologists call it present bias, the tendency to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future consequences, even catastrophic ones, simply because the future is abstract and the present is vivid. Your brain doesn't experience, "I might regret this in 15 years," as real. It experiences, "This hard conversation is uncomfortable right now," as extremely real. So it optimizes for comfort today and quietly, invisibly, mortgages a future you'll eventually have to live in. A future where the debt comes due whether you're ready or not. The Stoics understood this flaw in human wiring 2,000 years before psychologists had a name for it. That's exactly why Premeditatio Malorum exists. Not as a philosophy of doom, but as a deliberate override of a broken default setting. You make the abstract future concrete on purpose, on your own schedule, so your brain finally treats it as real enough to act on, instead of waiting for a truck, a diagnosis, or a phone call to do it for you. If you've ever had a moment, a scare, a loss, a near miss, that suddenly made everything else feel unimportant, except the 5 things you'd been avoiding, you already know exactly what I'm describing. You don't need convincing, you need a system. That's exactly what the Codex of Silent Strength is for. Not motivation that fades by Thursday, but the actual mental architecture the Stoics used to live like this permanently. Not just for the 2 weeks after a scare. Subscribe if you're done waiting for a wake-up call to force what you could choose right now. Here's exactly how you build this without needing a car accident to install it. Once a week, same day, same 10 minutes, non-negotiable. Ask yourself one uncomfortable question. If I found out today that I had 1 year left, who would I call? What would I finally build? What would I stop tolerating? Then here is the part almost nobody does. You don't wait for the answer to feel urgent. You act on one item from that list within 48 hours. Not the whole list. One item. Because the list itself means nothing if it stays a list. The Stoics didn't rehearse the worst so they could feel wise about it in their journal. They rehearsed it so they'd act differently by Tuesday. David's mistake wasn't that he didn't know his father mattered. He knew. Everyone knows. His mistake was believing knowledge without a deadline is the same as knowledge with one. It isn't. A truth you don't act on isn't wisdom. It's just a fact you're carrying around, unused, like a tool you never take out of the box. But here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. Because there's a second layer to this that most people never reach, even after their own version of David's accident. It's not enough to just rehearse the worst. The final move, the one that actually changes a life instead of just producing a good week of intentions, is what the Stoics called Amor Fati. Not just accepting that time runs out, but loving the specific, limited, unrepeatable shape of the life you actually have, instead of the infinite one you keep pretending you're living. You don't get infinite time to become the person you keep saying you'll become eventually. You get this decade, this body, these relationships, this window. And the moment you stop treating that as a tragedy and start treating it as the entire point, urgency stops feeling like anxiety and starts feeling like clarity. That's the actual transformation, not fear of death. Respect for the specific, finite, irreplaceable shape of the life you're already living. Right now, today, while you're watching this. Here's the thing nobody tells you about David's father, waiting 15 years for one phone call. He never once brought it up, never guilt-tripped, never asked why it took so long. He just waited, available the entire time, which means the tragedy was never really about time running out. The tragedy is that most of the people we're waiting to finally say the thing to, they're not disappearing. They're not going anywhere. They're just sitting there, exactly like David's father did, wondering when the version of you that already knows what matters is finally going to show up. You don't need a truck to run a red light. You already know what's on your list. Comment one word. Today. If there's someone on your list you're finally going to call and not someday. If you're ready to build the kind of clarity that doesn't need a scare to install it. Subscribe to the Codex of Silent Strength.